Hello and welcome to the Seer 365 sessions, where every week we interview and have a conversation with somebody who's involved in the Microsoft world, and just to try and learn from each other. Sorry, let's turn that off. To learn from each other and to see what we can do to improve our own businesses. And this week, I'm very excited to be joined by Prasath from 1 Billion Technology. Hey there, Prasath.
Hi, Richard.
Good to join you, and welcome. I think, pretty sure you're the furthest person away that we've spoken to. So, how are things in Sri Lanka today?
Oh, it's very sunny and nice. It's about
Nice.
30 degrees. Our office is very near the beach and the coast. So it's about 7:30 at night, but tropical weather, quite nice.
I'm very jealous. It's not like that in the UK today. So let's start then. And so, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and about 1 Billion Technology?
Sure. So I've been in the industry for almost more than 25 years. I worked in just about all the major geographies in the US, UK, parts of Asia, in Singapore, Australia, and worked for several large corporates. Back in 2014, after completing my MBA, I felt like going on my own, and I formed 1 Billion Tech with some of my friends from college and from my previous workplace. Initially, we are headquartered in Silicon Valley with a center in Colombo. Initially, our idea was to build a company that was focused on developing technology for Silicon Valley companies. So we started our first app with the Bitcoins. That's before Bitcoins became really big. But after that, the company grew, and now we have customers in 8 countries, in USA, Canada, in Europe, here in Sri Lanka, in Dubai, in Singapore, Australia, places like that. And we have focused heavily on Microsoft business applications, develop deep competencies in finance and operations, CRM, BC, and in things like technologies like SharePoint, .NET, C#, Power BI, Power Apps. So we focus heavily on Microsoft and build a very large customer base. And we have customers who have stayed with us for more than 6 years or so. So customer loyalty is something that we really cherish at 1 Billion Tech.
Thank you very much. And if anybody's watching this live, feel free to post some comments on either LinkedIn or YouTube, and they'll pop up. So feel free to ask questions as we go. So when we were talking over the last few weeks about you coming on the Seer sessions, I found it really interesting the way that my perception of what offshore delivery looks like compared to the modern reality. So when we talk a little bit about your views on what modern offshore delivery looks like, what are you seeing? What are you seeing out there? What does that modern offshore delivery look like?
Sure. So I think when you think of delivery, you tend to think of it as being a development, right? Engineering. But I think laterally it has transformed into a full services. For example, starting from requirements gathering, UI, UX, prototyping, project management, testing, QA, support. In addition to engineering, it has really evolved into a full services type of service offering. Our company has all of those capabilities. And what we find is that, you find engineers who start off with development, but really move on to take on other responsibilities as well. So as a result, we are able to provide you, consulting, business analysis, project management, and end-to-end delivery as a result because of this transformation.
So, and you've obviously been doing this a long time, and and working with customers all around the world. I've personally known about you, about 1 Billion Technology, in a few different previous businesses now, where we work with you. But for us, we've built up that relationship over time. But if you were a Microsoft partner today, who and let's face it, all Dynamics partners have got resource challenges everywhere on the planet. and you may be starting to think about using offshore delivery. What makes a good offshore partner? What's the sort of best practice with working with somebody like 1 Billion Technology?
Sure. So first of all, I think when you choose a good partner, you have to do your due diligence and make sure that you find a good partner with a solid track record. So customer reference calls and things like that will be helpful. But typically, a strong partner will have access to really strong people, good resources, have a track record of hiring and retaining really talented people. Such a partner will also have good processes in place, and also tools and technologies for collaboration, because obviously these two entities are far apart. So you got to make sure that you have the proper tools and technologies, and you have regular collaboration mechanisms in place. And if you have those things, obviously offshore by nature comes with significant cost savings as well. With a little bit of investment into those aspects, offshore can be a wonderful addition to complement your teams.
Yeah, I think for us, and this isn't just with Seer, but previous businesses as well, we've always been the time zone's always been helpful, right? Because you can kind of have a stand up, have a call, talk about what we need, and then by the time you then sort of work whilst we're asleep, and then you sort of wake up and you get this continual motion. So that's always been something that you guys have always done very well. But what are the other advantages, do you think then? So, because if it's just a cost thing, that's obviously an important metric. But what else do you think that you've got that you can help partners with?
Yes. So I think often you overlook the whole aspect of access to talent, right? Because
Yeah,
IT resources tend to be very costly, and even if you hire them, retaining them is a challenge. So all these offshore geographies have developed over the past 20 years, and there's a massive resource pool. So that, I think, is a key benefit that you get from offshoring. Then the other aspect is risk mitigation, because what if any of your key resources happen to resign and look for other opportunities and move away? How would you backfill those positions? That tend to be very costly, especially in places like UK and North America. So that risk mitigation, where offshore companies have access to this vast resource pool, is something that's definitely overlooked. And the other aspect is this whole timeline acceleration, because when you finish your work, depending on which geography the offshore partner is, they can begin a new day and continue with your work. So essentially, you are working, almost around the clock, and that result in significant timeline acceleration as well. So those are some of the other added benefits of working with offshore.
So, and I obviously agree with everything you just said, but I know that I mean, offshore's been around a long time. People have thought about it. It's not particularly new thing, but there's always been or frequently a hesitation about the drawbacks around offshore. So, and that's why some partners haven't gone down this path necessarily. What would you say the biggest drawbacks are? And if you were a partner, if you were on the other side of the table, how would you look to mitigate those drawbacks?
Sure. So I think there are cultural barriers, right? Understanding each other and communication challenges. So you have to invest a little bit to get to know your partners. Both sides will have to really build up that rapport and relationship and trust. It takes a bit of time, and my pretty much best practices that I have come across include communicating regularly and frequently until both sides feel that we understand each other's concerns, challenges, requirements, opportunities, all of that. And it takes some time to build that trust and relationship. And some of the best practices is that if you could actually visit each other, in some key people can go and visit each other, that also helps to really understand each other's cultures and each other's concerns, and overcome those challenges. And then having the proper infrastructure. We talk about technology tools and processes. Those things are really key to making offshore works. So I think a lot of these things are in place for strong offshore partners. So you'll have to give it a try. You will have to do a pilot project and see how it goes, and learn from those mistakes if there is any. And then once we do that, you can move on to bigger long term relationship. Even for us, a lot of our customers, initially things do, hiccups happen, right? So you'll have to talk about it openly and what those are, and mitigate those risks and overcome challenges. And then once we do that, certainly you are set for a pretty well successful partnership long term.
Nice. So as far as the future goes, so right now, if I was a partner, I can work with you for obviously the traditional development stuff, but more of the functional PM, DevOps type work as well. What do you think the future is going to hold for offshore? What's kind of the next service you think be able to deliver?
Yeah. So I think the future of offshore will look like extension to your team. From the perspective of technology and consulting and things like that, that transformation is already happening. Offshore certainly has quite a bit of business consulting, functional consulting, technical support, configuration, customization. All of those work can be done with offshore. And when you really think about it, what the pandemic has done is that a lot of people, even within the same geography, tend to work from home. Traveling has been cut down significantly. So if you're talking to someone, if you're in London and talking to someone in Manchester versus someone in Colombo, other than the time zone difference, it still feels the same, because you are still on the same Teams network and talking to each other on a Zoom call. So as a result, offshore teams will feel more like an extension to your team, and you will be able to do higher value-added services to your customers using offshore resources just as much as you can do it from on-site. Now, of course, with a fraction of a cost.
Yeah, and that'll be really interesting from a program management, project management. How to embed them in there. And to be honest, I think that's probably already happening. Certainly with the larger partners, many of them have already tried offshore or nearshore development. So just expanding it to a third party, I think will work out really well.
Yes, indeed.
Sorry, Karen.
Yes, indeed. And I think you're quite right. That transformation has already taken place. As I said, we've been working with some of our partners for more than 6 years. And it's a tried and tested method. And just about everyone who works with offshore companies that are focused on customers find that to be a great experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you very much, Prasath, for spending some time with us today. I know the offshore model is one that a lot of partners have thought about. So if you haven't tried it, I highly recommend you reaching out to 1 Billion Tech. So they're just putting their URL up on the screen now, so 1billiontech.com. And if you'd like to get in contact with Prasath, do my banners, there we go. I've just put his LinkedIn URL on the screen as well. So thank you very much. It was great to be able to spend a bit of time with you today. Like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the chat. We'll try and answer them as usual. And failing that, I hope everybody has a great rest of their week. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Richard. Always a pleasure to speak to you.
And you.
Thanks.